we are back, and as promised, we got more business tips, and we are going to be talking about employee versus independent contractor. And this is a three-part series because there's so many different factors. So I don't want to put it all in one video and overwhelm you all. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you don't know, I'm a licensed attorney out of the state of Missouri. So that's why I decided, let me start giving y'all some of this free information as well on top of the grants that I am putting out there. As always, if you get anything of value out of this video, beginning, middle, end, like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Turn on your notification bell so you can know when this information drops. And of course, if you want to support the channel, come on over to the Patreon. We can be more interactive. I answer questions over there. You can comment, make posts. I'll quickly share my screen just so you can see what it looks like if you do decide to come and join us. So yes, it says it's locked, but once you become a member, all of this stuff gets unlocked. But in here, I put for-profit, nonprofit, state-specific, country-specific. So there's that. I don't want to waste y'all time spending over there because I'm gonna see y'all on the other side because I know y'all finna support this channel. So let's talk about employee versus independent contractor. If you're not aware, the IRS has a 20-factor test. And what I want you all to understand that just because you might say yes to some of these and no to the others, it's a collective. Right? So when they decide to look at it, they're not going to say, oh, they misidentified them on number 12. So therefore, they're not, in fact, an independent contractor. They're going to look at it from the whole and say, okay, well, 1 through whatever, they met the requirement. And some of them are more weighted than others. There are 3 separate categories that they look at. They look at behavior control, they look at financial control, and they look at the relationship of the parties. As I said in one of my previous videos, the most important piece is to look at the level of control that you have over the individual that is performing these tasks for you. Before you label anybody, make sure you have an independent contractor agreement. And there are videos in this playlist, the biz playlist, that talks about things to consider when putting that contract together, clauses that need to be in there, and then also why is that important in your business. So definitely check out the resources. So now I'm going to go through some of the things that you need to consider from the behavior control perspective. So this video is going to focus just on behavior control aspects, okay? And there's going to be 10 things that you need to consider. So also think about how many out of the 20 is bucketed in certain control levels. So behavior control is going to be important because it's 10, it's 50%. So it weighs 50% of that 20-point list. The first thing you need to think about is instructions. So does the employer provide instructions to the independent contractor on how to perform the job? That shows a level of control over that person's behaviors. If I work for my employer typically has processes in place on how I can or cannot do something. As an independent contractor, you are allowed to show up and perform in whatever manner because you should have the expertise. Second is training. Does the employer provide training? Because the independent contractor is going to show up already trained. They know how to do the work. They're an expert in their field, which is why you are hiring them. You're not hiring them to train them. Third is integration. Is the independent contractor's work integrated in your day-to-day operations? Meaning that, but for them being there, you're not able to continue to work efficiently, or essentially your work is going to stop, right? And if that's the case, then that's more likely like an employee. Prime example is if I were to leave my organization today, they would be without a lawyer. And that would interrupt their operations, regardless if they're going to figure it out. Operations will be interrupted because I'm literally the only attorney at that facility. Now, independent contractor, they should be coming in to help with something, a specific task, a specific job. And once they leave, there's no interruption. Services rendered personally. Does the independent contractor have to perform the jobs personally, or can he or she hire an assistant? If he or she is not allowed to hire an assistant, then they are likely an employee versus an independent contractor. Them not being able to hire an assistant is not the same as them not being able to hire a third party if that is mentioned in your contract. Typically, if they have a team, that's going to be their team, i.e. the assistant is a part of their team versus I go and hire a completely different company to perform a task that you tasked for me to hire. Remember, there's always going to be caveats, right? Because if I'm a GC on a construction job, yes, I'm going to outsource, but then those individuals are going to be independent contractors of myself, and I'm still going to be an independent contractor under that prime agreement. So remember that nothing is etched in stone here. Number 5, hire, supervise, and pay the assistants. Does the employer do that? If they do that, we are not dealing with an independent contractor. That is an employee, because the independent contractor is responsible for hiring, paying, and supervising their own assistants. Number 6, continuing relationship. Does the relationship have an end date? Okay. Your contract will typically put the term in there. And even if it's they follow up once a year, they should not, as said earlier, be integrated into your business so much that essentially their work never ends. Number 7, who sets the hours of work? The hours of work should be set by the independent contractor, not the employer. If the employer is setting the hours, we're likely dealing with an employee. There's always an exception, right? So if the work needs to be performed during business hours because they are on site, then that's different, right? But it could be that the work needs to be performed after hours. However, the employer still cannot say you need to be here from 9 to 5. They might come in from 3 to 4 or 1 to 2. They get to determine how they are going to complete for what they have been hired to complete. Number 8 is full-time work required. If they are required to work 40 hours a week or overtime or whatever, again, they are no longer considered an independent contractor, but they are now considered an employee, because that shows that you have substantial amount of control over that individual. Work performed on the employer's premises. Now, again, this is saying that I am performing a task that does not require me to do so at your facility, and yet you're requiring me to do that. If somebody hires me as an independent contractor to draft contractual agreements for them, but they then tell me I have to come into their office to write these contracts when I can write them from the confines of my home, then I am going to be considered an employee versus an independent contractor. Now, if you hired me as an independent contractor to paint your house, I can't say I'm going to paint virtually from my house to then paint your facility. So remember, there's always caveats. The IRS is definitely going to look at the circumstances of why you were required to be on site versus if you weren't required to be on site. And then number 10, order of sequence. Order of sequence refers to you are communicating to the independent contractor how they must get to their end result. So you are telling them step by step what they have to do. I'm going to go back to that contractual agreement, right? If somebody tells me that you can't start writing until you do X, Y, and Z, or you can't start writing until you research X, Y, and Z, then you have a level of control over how I perform my task. If you tell me that, okay, I need you to have this completed by Friday the 13th, then that's completely different. That's not a level of control. That's just giving me the deadline. But then I'm able to perform that task over however many weeks it takes prior to the 13th in order to complete that task. So you are not having a level of control over me. So in summary, we have 10 behavior control tests that you have to consider before you say that you have somebody as an independent contractor, and in fact, they turn out to be an employee, which is going to cost you substantially in fees, penalties, and could essentially bankrupt your business depending on the size of your business and the reserve funds that your business have, and you do not want to do that. That's our 10 for behavioral. So if you got anything of value out of this video, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you like these videos, if you want to get some more of these videos. Thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with me virtually. If you want to have an interactive conversation with me, come on over to the Patreon and support the channel. As always, check out the Small Business Grant playlist. You know, I got to put a plug for that. And I want you all to have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. And I will see you all next time.